Clerk, please call the roll.
Alder Wood,
Here.
Alder Court,
Here.
Alder Thomas, Alder Groupie,
Here.
Alder Moore,
Here.
Alder Schilling,
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the April 20th and 21st meeting? I think Leah sent a slightly revised version of the minutes from the 21st this afternoon.
I'll move approval.
Email.
Second.
Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes are approved. We have one appearance this evening. County Executive Joe Parisi asked to come and I think give us a little update on what the county's doing, I assume with COVID-19 and anything else we might find of interest. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, I thought I'd come and maybe give you a little overview. I know that a number of you are familiar with a lot of what we're doing, but give you kind of a brief overview of where things stand in the county right now, as far as county government and some of the things we've been up to, and be here in case you have any questions or any information that you need of me that I could either give you today or follow up after the meeting sometime. I'd be happy to. So, time-wise, should I take like 5 minutes maybe to?
Sure, that's fine.
Is that okay? I'll try to make it as brief as possible.
Go a little longer, that's fine too.
Okay, thanks. So as you know, like so many folks, when this began, it seems like forever ago now, that our new normal really is kind of our new normal. We went through the same motions that most other local units of government did, transitioning all of our the ways of doing business to alternative methods. There are obviously some things that we still need to do in person, but we have a very high percentage of our workforce working remotely. We still do obviously run a jail and a nursing home, CPS and other human services and in areas like that where we do need to have people in person doing their business. So one of the things that folks on this in this meeting are aware of is our Emergency Operations Center. Our Emergency Operations Center was activated at the beginning of this, and we do have, now we're down to a couple of calls a week. We were doing every day and then 3 days a week, and we're at 2 days a week now that we're kind of hit our stride, where we have an update with people from around the county, be they in local government, community organizations, the healthcare community. We usually have up to a couple of hundred people on that call, and we get overviews from the public health department and other folks just to make sure that everyone is connecting with everyone and we're sharing as much information as possible. And some things that are more specifically county government related, as you know, the Lion Energy Center has undergone quite a transformation. It's our department that has taken the biggest hit because it is in essence a building. And virtually everything that's been going on there has ceased. We've had numerous shows, had to cancel some very big ones. And so what we're trying to do there is utilize that space for other community needs. As you may know, the Saturday's Farmers Market is now a drive-through farmers market that is happening at the Lion Energy Center. We also are giving warehouse space there for Second Harvest Food Bank to use for storage and packing. It's not being distributed directly to people from the Lion Energy Center, but the food is going out to pantries around the county because of that. We've also identified the Lion Energy Center as the potential site for an alternate care facility, otherwise known as a field hospital, should that need arise for surge capacity. We've had the Army Corps of Engineers in here working with the Army Corps and the state government and the healthcare providers. And we have designated and designed the facility. It's under design right now. It has not been given a green light for actual construction because right now our hospitals are doing an amazing job of maintaining capacity, certainly at quite a cost to themselves. But this facility will be ready to be built, it's just on a dime if it needs to be, if we do have a sudden spike. So we're prepared there, because obviously the last thing we want to do is overwhelm our healthcare system. One of the reasons we don't have to go forward at this point is because folks overall in Dane County have been doing an amazing job with the safer at home guidelines. Compared to a lot of folks, we have a very slow rate of increase. We still do have increases every day, where I believe this morning we were at 444 cases in the county. We're seeing about a quarter of those end up being in the hospital. But overall, as you know, we did lock down early in Dane County. We were the first place in the state to have a positive. We were only the 12th location in the entire nation to have a positive. And so that really did get us to kick into action sooner. And we've had a fairly successful time of it. Now, that said, that doesn't come without a cost. And we certainly know that people are hurting in a very big way because of the shutdown. Countywide, we've had approximately 30,000 folks apply for unemployment since the safer at home guidelines have gone into place. We're witnessing people experiencing food insecurity and concern about shelter in numbers that possibly we never had before. So one of the things the county's been focused on, because we are basically the safety net for so many individuals in Dane County, is early on we identified vulnerable populations. We did a quick transition along with partners to look at our senior population, many of whom depend on congregate meal sites for a lot of their nutrition. And we, along with our community partners, have transitioned to increase actually the number of Meals on Wheels that are delivered. We used to do not just Meals on Wheels, but through congregate meals, about 3,000 meals a week. And at last count, that was up to about 3,800. So we're focusing as much as we can on the senior community to make sure that they're doing okay. We had a similar very heavy lift in the homeless community. When the social distancing guidelines came out, it was very clear that none of the shelters were able to accommodate that. So early on, we came in and we started identifying folks who A, were in families, and B, who were most vulnerable should they get COVID, and started moving them into hotel rooms. And we focused first on families, all of the women with children who were staying with the Salvation Army. We moved every one of those families into a hotel. And then again, we started focusing on the single men who were at risk with one or more conditions that could put them more at risk for COVID. And as of yesterday, the number fluctuates a little bit, but we had about 360 individuals in hotels throughout the community. And by putting folks in hotels and then moving the men's night shelter that was at Grace Episcopal downtown to the Warner Park Community Center, we're able to accomplish social distancing for folks who still are in the shelters so that they're, excuse me, at least 6 feet apart at night. The same is true at the Salvation Army, where the single women's shelter is. Because we were able to move families out of there and move some more people into hotels, we're able to have better social distancing there. And the fact that so many people are in hotels means they can stay there during the day too, which means the Beacon Homeless Day Resource Center has had quite a reduction in the number of people there, which has been good news for social distancing in that area. One of the efforts that we announced last week, I'll just go over a couple of the major efforts that you've probably heard about, but just to make sure, and this is back to the food insecurity. One of the things that we've seen happen, ironically, is that we have farmers having trouble getting their products to market because of some of the supply chain issues that people are having, be it processing plants that are shutting down. It's a very complicated food chain, and the decrease in demand from restaurants and other places where we literally saw farmers having to dump milk. On the other hand, we have people in Dane County needing help with food in numbers that we've never seen before. So we set out to build a bridge between the two of those folks. And the way we did that is we partnered with Second Harvest, and Dane County is giving Second Harvest $3 million in a partnership to increase the amount of food that they have available, with a preference on working with our local farmers, be it meat or dairy, to vegetable growers, to get as much of that food from our local growers as possible. And one of the things we're doing to help accomplish that, because again, the supply chains and storage can be such a challenge, is Dane County has leased 4 refrigerated semi-trailers to be used in that effort so it can transport and store food from local growers. So hopefully that partnership will give a hand to our farmers in the form of an outlet for their product when they need it. And it will certainly help Second Harvest restock and replenish their shelves. So again, that's $3 million to be used over the next 90 days. And then we will take a look at how things are going 3 months from now to see if we're able, if they need any more aid. We've also beefed up our public health department. There's a resolution going through the county board and the city council now because, as you know, the public health department is a joint City of Madison and Dane County department. And they've been doing an amazing job. Those folks, I can attest, they are all working 7 days a week, and they have been since this pandemic began. And as we enter the stage where hopefully we see fewer and fewer cases and we're able to get more testing supplies so we can do more testing, it's going to be critical that we have more staff in public health. So we have a $700,000 budget amendment going through to hire 8 new staff to augment the public health department. And these folks will help with a couple of things. There'll be a couple more nurses. There'll be people who can do contact tracing. So, ideally, you get to a situation where there is a limited number of cases so that every time there's a case, you can identify every person that has come in contact with the person who's tested positive. But to do that, you need testing supplies and you need the staff to be able to do that. So we're hiring extra staff to do that contact tracing. And then we have dollars to help people who need to isolate but might not have the resources to do so. Be it staying in an extended stay hotel and making sure that they have food and services and that kind of thing so that they can successfully isolate. Couple more quick things, and then I'll stop for questions. You may have seen yesterday, we announced a major addition to a partnership that we have with the local small business community. We started a fund around April 1st, I believe, when things were, we were about a month into the pandemic as far as the shutdown. Dane County contributed $250,000 to Dane Buy Local to start a fund to give to local small businesses when they need help, be it retaining employees or anything they needed, just a lifeline to help them keep going through the pandemic. It soon became clear that the demand was going to way outstrip the resources. So we found another $550,000 and got it up to $800,000. But even then, that we're looking at such an enormous amount of need. And while there are multiple resources out there, there's certainly never enough. So we made the decision this week, excuse me, I've been doing a lot of these meetings and I lose my voice. We made the decision this week that Dane County would make a major investment of $10 million more into the Small Business Relief Fund. So there will be a total of $10.8 million available through Dane Buy Local. So if any folks here know small local businesses who need some help right now, if they have not reached out to Dane Buy Local, please do so. There's $10 million there waiting to be given out in grants to folks. So go to danebuylocal.com and all the information for that is on their website. Again, our small businesses are such an important and integral part of our community. They're here for us. I mean, we think of, we're talking to the Monona Chamber now, right? You go into Monona Motors and you see the Little League teams that they sponsor. You go anywhere, and small businesses are always helping out our community. And now our community needs to be there for them, to throw them a lifeline. So we were very honored to be able to do that. So I'll close on an announcement that we made today that has a direct impact on local units of government. And that is, as you may know, the state government recently passed some legislation that would allow, if the county introduces enabling legislation, will allow municipalities to delay the tax collection date from July to October 1st. And today we announced that we are introducing that. That resolution should be before the county board, I believe, Thursday, so that local municipalities, if you desire, you can pass a resolution to allow your folks who might have a July payment coming up to defer that payment till October 1st And it gives you the ability, gives us the ability also to waive interest and penalties on that, just to give folks a little breathing room. Now, there'll be municipalities that are interested in doing that. There might be some smaller municipalities that just don't have the cash flow to do it. So we wanted to make sure that people had the choice because everyone's situation is a little different, but that is an option that's available to you as we speak. So I think I'll stop there. Thank you again for letting me take the time just to check in with you and make sure everything's going okay. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if I don't know the answers, I'd be happy to follow up with any information that would be helpful to you.
Well, we appreciate your coming, and we are going to bring a resolution to the next council meeting about the property tax payments. And I was happy to see the announcement about the additional money for small businesses yesterday, and I sent that on to our local chamber right away. And I know he's been forwarding that out to all their members. So that's been great. They've been happy to see that. Does anyone have any other questions for the county exec? Alder Moore?
Yeah, since you mentioned in the beginning, and I know that it's been an issue nationally, you mentioned the nursing home and the jail. Can you give us a sense of, I guess, a larger context, how we're doing with testing and specifically how things are going at the nursing home and the jail?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So the nursing home was one of the first places that we shut down to outside visitors and put in strict guidelines. And as of today, we have no positive cases at the nursing home. Unfortunately, we still can't allow visitors there, which is incredibly challenging for the folks who live there. But obviously, their safety is preeminent, and so so far so good at the nursing home. And I have to give again just the utmost respect to our staff and all the folks who are working there, and the care that they are giving and the job that they're doing. At our jail, relatively speaking, we're not doing too bad. I saw last week Kenosha County Jail tested and they had 79 positives in their jail, which is, and I think they have a population about half the size of ours. Our jail's average daily population pre-COVID was around 750 people a day. Once COVID, it became obvious that the challenges we face, the courts, the courts between the DA and the judges and the sheriff and the public defender, everyone involved, they managed to bring the population down by about 250 people. I believe there are fewer than 500 in there now. So it's, because obviously it's complicated. You can't just, no one person can declare, we're going to let this person out or that person out. But they've been working really hard on that so that they are under 500 in their population as we speak. Last week, they tested the entire population of the jail, of both of the jails, along with every single staff person who works in the jails. And don't quote me on this because I don't have it off the top of my head, but I believe what we ended up with was an additional, I think it was 6 inmates that weren't previously testing positive, test 5. Okay, I see Scott giving me a 5. 5 additional inmates who hadn't been identified before. And they could all be traced back to the couple of known cases, the few known cases that were in the jail already. So they feel that they have that under control. They have folks isolated away from the rest of the population, but they did want to test every single person just to make sure. And again, they tested every single staff person, and that came back with, I believe, 1 person tested positive. So that situation at this point is under control. They're keeping a close eye on it. And yeah, so those are basically our 2 institutions that are closed, that we would have to be dealing with something like that.
Terrific, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Alder Schilling and then Alder Wood.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. First, I want to say, Executive Parisi, thank you so much. You've been doing an incredible job. Exemplary leadership from you and your team, and I know I appreciate it.
Thanks.
I was just curious about what the end date is for the hotel stays for the homeless population, and then what?
Yeah, so right now that's a very good question. What is the end date for the hotel stays? We are working on a transition plan because it's pretty obvious that we can't go back to the way we were before. One of the challenges that we have is right now we're able to pay for those hotel stays, it's been almost $2 million to date through federal CARES Act money. Now, as it stands right now, those CARES Act dollars run out January 1st. So we have staff teams working between the county and the city, looking at what that transition will look like, because as you mentioned, it's an enormous number of people, and summer doesn't last very long in Dane County. So we're actively looking at what that'll look like afterwards.
Awesome. And then my last question is, I hope this doesn't get too much into the nuts and bolts of the small business loans or grants. I have a friend who had a thriving minority-owned business as a woman, and she was denied a loan from, or one of the grants from Dane Buy Local, and it was maybe at the onset of that program before it was replenished. She wasn't quite sure why she was denied, and she was wondering two things. Is it because she's not a member of a chamber of commerce, and should she reapply?
Yeah, she should definitely reapply. If folks got a loan, they're asked not to apply again because of the need. But if someone did apply and was turned down, they should absolutely reapply. And they don't have to be a member of a chamber. All you have to do is literally be a legitimate registered business. So I'd encourage her to reapply again, and because I know they ran out of money quickly. The demand was just so great.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Would.
Yeah, I was wondering, with the Supreme Court decision possibly coming down as early as this week, if they were to strike down the governor's safer at home order, do you have any plans or for re-implementing a county level restrictions?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And before I do, that reminds me of another thing I wanted to mention to you, and forgive me if I did mention it. Did I mention that I'm also going to extend the Dane County Declaration of Emergency, not to be confused with, for anyone watching, not to be confused with the Safer at Home guidelines. This is something different, but it's obviously of note for local units of government because we will be extending ours by 60 days so that we can keep the FEMA process going, so that people can still continue to document expenses that can be turned in for reimbursement at a later time. So I just wanted to, I'm glad you mentioned that because it made me realize I'd forgotten to mention that. But back to the Safer at Home guidelines. Yeah, as you know, Dane County has issued guidelines also, whoops, I just lost, there we go. Has issued guidelines also. Our public health department has the ability to do that. Ours mirror the states at this moment. And depending on what the order says, it would be our intention to follow the advice of our local health department and do what we believe is in the best interest of Dane County residents. Now, depending on how the court, the court could strike it down and preempt local governments from doing anything. I would hope that's not the case, because actually the argument of the folks who are trying to get the order struck down is that it should be more of a local and more of a regional approach. So, I hope it isn't struck down, but if it is, we will certainly continue to look not only at Dane County, but we're working and in discussions with our partners regionally, because we have, I think the latest numbers during normal times when people were commuting, like 90,000 people a day commuted into Dane County from our surrounding counties too. So we will certainly look at doing what's best for Dane County, and we're going to do our best to work with our partners in Rock, Greene, Columbia, et cetera, to be able to do something in concert, because of, obviously a virus knows no boundaries. So that would be our ultimate goal if it is struck down.
Anyone else? Well, I know that I and some of our staff have been listening to the emergency management updates a couple times a week, and they've been very useful
Great.
as well.
Great.
So we appreciate all the information we're getting from the county and everything on the public health website, and it's all been very helpful for all.
Great.
So does anyone have any other questions? Well, thank you very much. Alder Schilling?
One last quick one. Is there the events that have been canceled at Alliant Energy Center, is there a date when they haven't been canceled or a start date for those, or are you just sitting on that right now?
No, I mean, we're waiting to see, we take it as it goes. We'll be listening to the guidelines. Most of the folks have taken it upon themselves to cancel. For example, the CrossFit Games, which obviously is a huge hit to our local economy, that they're not going to be here this year. So that's going to be kind of a wait and see, and we'll be guided by the same principles we're using, elsewhere. We want the economy to come back as quickly as possible, but we want to do this right the first time. So it's kind of wait and see how things are going and follow the guidelines. So it's hard to have really kind of a set date at this point.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thanks very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Take care.
Thank you.
you too. Thank you. Okay, there is no public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move approval.
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We have one item under unfinished business, consideration of resolution 20-4-2403, approving a memorandum of agreement between the Wisconsin Historical Society and the city of Monona for the completion of a historic preservation project put forth by the city planner. Is there a motion to approve this?
Approval.
There's a second?
Second.
Doug?
Thank you. So this was discussed at the last meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but at the recommendation of council, there was a force majeure clause that was drafted by Attorney Cole. The red line agreement, proposed agreement, has been put in the packet. I did work with the State Historical Society to basically run this by them and make sure they were comfortable with it. There's not typically much wiggle room in terms of the agreements, but they did agree to this. So I think it looks to be, it certainly covers us with current situation and things like that. So that's in the packet, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions there is.
Questions, anyone? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Moving on to new business, item 2A, consideration of resolution 20-5-2405, providing for the sale of 2.9 million in water system and sewer system revenue bonds, series 2020B, put forth by the finance director, and this is started for immediate approval. Kathy, you're unmuted, I think.
move to suspend the rules and take this out of order.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval. Second.
Okay. Mark?
Yes, this is a resolution to authorize our financial consultant, Jeff Belangi, to start negotiation to the bondholders and come back at the next meeting with the final numbers. What this is there's two parts to this borrowing of this 2.9. There's one part is 1,260,000 is related to the 2020 capital, approved 2020 capital. There's one issue here with the water. The water in the 2020 budget, we did budget for meter upgrades, which is about 900,000. We backed that off for now. For one reason is because we haven't heard back from the PSC. We don't know if we're going to get approved or not. So we didn't want to borrow for something we don't know if we're going to get it be approved or not. And we're eventually going to do some borrowing later in the year for some refinancing related to some TIF issues. So if we thought we get approval, we'd just put it into that borrowing. Some of the water and sewer both we had McKenna Road bids came in less for the utilities than we budgeted. So that was subtracted out. And we had some money left over from unspent proceeds from the years before to get down to 1,260,000 to cover our 2020 capital. We also had a 5-year band, a revenue band, which is we borrowed for 5 years and now we're going to refinance it. It comes due not this year, but actually next year. But we thought we would borrow in here to save money with the interest rates being so low that we borrow it right now. And that portion is 1,640,000 so between water and sewer for a total borrowing of $2.9 million. That's all I have.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Mary, sorry, we need a roll call vote on that item.
Oh, do we, even though it's just to approve the borrow, or the starting of the borrowing?
Yeah, we just talked after the Finance Personnel Committee. Yep.
Oh, okay,
Recommendation to the bond council.
okay. All right, so will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Schilling,
Yes.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Kohler,
Aye.
Alder Thomas,
Aye.
Alder Groupie,
Aye.
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 2B, consideration of resolution 20-5-2404, approval of participation in the Wisconsin Bureau of Transportation Safety Grant 2020 Speed Grant Task Force, put forth by the police chief. Is there a motion to,
Move to suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Wally?
Hey, this is a 2020 speed grant from the Bureau of Transportation Safety for $5,000. They'll pay $5,000 for overtime wages. There's a 25% cost sharing, so through our on-duty time, we'd have to come up with another $1,250 towards the grant, but that's covered, in paying fringe benefits, fuel, equipment, things like that. We're partnered with several other communities in the Dane County area in doing this. Our portion is $5,000. Initially, when this came out, due to the pandemic and our current staffing situation, where we're trying to not do anything to encourage more contacts, I was kind of opposed to doing this. But then once we started talking to the Department of Transportation, their concern is that once the safer at home order goes away, the traffic is just going to go crazy, so to speak. So they want a lot of visible police presence, and they're fine with us just writing warning tickets as opposed to mandated to write so many speeding tickets. That doesn't mean someone won't get a speeding ticket if they're driving excessively. It just means that that's not the top priority. The priority is to make contacts and get people to slow down. So this runs from June through September 20th. And right now we're sort of in a standing down mode. We're going to start bringing people back around May 15th to get back up to full speed. So we're going to kind of play it by ear and see how things go. Rather than not do it, we'd rather have it in place so that if we need it, and if we don't need it, we don't have to take it and we won't have to accept the money. So it's sort of a win-win either way.
Questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Mayor, point of order. Sorry, just the clerk has asked for a roll call vote on this item too.
Oh, do we do that now for accepting grants?
we have to pay in.
Because we have paid now.
Oh, okay, all right. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Alder Schilling,
Aye.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Kohler,
Aye.
Alder Thomas,
Aye.
Alder Groupie,
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Wally. Next, item 2C, consideration of resolution 20-3-2398, approving facility use agreement with Monona Farmers Market, put forth by the Parks and Recreation Director. This is also starred for immediate approval.
Move to take this out of order.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Is there a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Okay. Jake,
All right, so this is a 5-year extension of a historical agreement with Monona Farmers Market. Been using Huska Park since the beginning of the market, I believe in 2003. Typically on our long-term groups, we might be going on a year to year. Wanted to just extend out the terms a little bit longer with the farmers market. So pretty much similar to the existing agreements we've had with the Monona's Farmers Market, no fee paid to the city for use of the facility, access to the storage unit at the concession stand, and then just have a clause of ability for the city to restrict or put additional measures in given public safety issues like we're experiencing right now. So this was discussed at our November meeting. Given the COVID-19 situation, we had Attorney Cole modify to put some language in there that allows the city to put some additional restrictions that are consistent with public health guidelines for operation of farmers markets.
And I think you all got the revised version of this agreement in your email this afternoon.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you have anything else on it, Jake?
Nope.
Anybody have any questions for Jake?
I do. I know the farmer's market, it says they can start on the 31st. I know they'd really like to start on the 17th. Someone reached out to me on that. Is that a possibility or just not possible?
We're still reviewing their paperwork. They did get approval from the county health department. We're reviewing their insurance that just came through today. So that needs to be reviewed by our insurance company. I'm recommending we wait until the end of the executive order with some additional compliance of seeing the setup that's going to happen. It's pretty fast timetable between now and the 17th, given the pretty major change in what the market is going to look like. So my recommendation is we wait until the end of the Safer at Home order is done. It's certainly doable if that's the wish of administration and the council, but my recommendation would be to wait till the 31st.
I
And I
know
think
they
we decided that. We agreed with that.
Okay, I know they did, they are modeling based on the West Side Farmers Market, which was just, public health was over there and watched the process and the operation and gave them the green light, and they'll be modeling that. So I just know with small organizations and they have farmers ready to go, and that it's really hard if you know, to miss out almost on a full month of the farmers market is tough financially on them.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, I certainly appreciate what Alder Schilling is saying. Having been on the Farmers Market Committee previously, I also know how tiny our committee is and the bandwidth of the committee itself, you know, to pull off something a little larger. So, you know, I'm sure it's, even though we have a market manager, it's a tiny committee with not a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah, I've been on the committee as well, and they did tell me ideally they'd like to open the 17th because it would give them the opportunity to just kind of ease in with not having a lot of farmers at once, and just kind of to get the system, like kind of roll it out in a slower fashion versus on the 31st, farmers are going to be in full force and ready to go. So that was their main consideration.
Okay. Anyone else?
I just think if the rules are asking that we wait, and given the complexity of what's going on in the world, I agree with Jake that we need to wait and stick with the date that we have. We do it right, do it slowly.
We also have issues with the bathrooms, and if they're going to be open, we haven't been opening the park restrooms to the public yet, how those are kept clean in the meantime, and different things like that too. So it's kind of complicated, as is everything these days. Anything else? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. Next, item D, discussion and update on staffing, budgetary, and city operations contingency plans for COVID-19 put forth by the city administrator and the Parks and Recreation Director. Mark and Brian and I have been meeting. We've had some initial discussions about a month earlier than we usually do regarding planning for the 2021 budget. And we were also discussing the staffing plan and everything. So Brian had some updates, and I think Mark had a few things he wanted to talk about as well. So Brian, you want to?
Yeah, first, so just mention something quick about the budget, and then I'll turn things over to Jake and to Mark to provide any updates, and then we'll come back to me to talk about the staffing plan. Just as it relates to the 2021 budget, as you can expect, it's going to have an impact, probably a significant impact on how we craft the budget for 2021. What we've talked about on a staff and department head level is putting together different scenarios for the impact on our levy and what type of expenditures we'd be doing. So when we get to kind of the bulk of the budget season this summer, going through committees, what you'll likely see is a couple of different scenarios for how the individual departmental budgets will look, and that'll provide an opportunity for us to have some conversation about what's feasible. And hopefully by that time we'll have some more information about the financial impact of everything that's going on. From the capital side, we're also asking department heads to take a look at the 2021 capital budget and look for those projects that could be pushed off to a future year to kind of, again, limit the type of expenditures that we may be doing in 2021. And that may have a spillover effect in 2022 and 2023. So we'll also be having conversations about that as well this summer. So that work is underway now, and we will likely have more information for the council in the coming weeks. So with that, I'll pause on the budget and then turn things over to Mark and to Jake to provide kind of an update on at least what we know now as it relates to Parks and Rec programming and some of the thoughts there.
Mark, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first, if that's right. I just got a couple things to say. One, we kind of talked about, both of you kind of talked about finances. I got some calls already from actually businesses in residential, what our policy is going to be once the order is lifted, and how we're going to proceed with water bills and disconnections and late penalties. As of right now, it's a PSC order. We're not allowed to charge penalties on water bills, and we're not allowed to disconnect. Those are state statutes to begin with, and that's why the PSC ordered everybody in the state to stop charging. So once it comes back on, the question is, will we disconnect after that? With that, if you don't pay by a certain date, I believe it's October 30th, you get a letter from us, or September 30th, you get a letter from us, say you got to pay by a certain date, otherwise it goes on to the tax roll. There's a 10% penalty, which is a state statute from the PSC, and it goes on to there. It used to be the process we used to have before we started our disconnection policy, probably about 8 years ago. Right now, we put in about 6,000 onto the tax roll. We used to put in about 30,000 before. So we've done it about 8 years ago. It used to be around 35,000. Now we're down to like 6,000. So are we going to continue that process, disconnection, or not disconnecting people for this year? I think internally we kind of talked about not disconnecting, let it go onto the tax roll for people. The biggest issue is if you don't pay people, we'd stuck with the 10%. And right now, I don't know what the statute's going to be. If the PSC is going to let us waive that 10%, but that's the risk if you let it go onto the tax roll for a resident. Our delinquency used to be about 3% at the same time last year. That's kind of been, it's always been. Now we're at 10%. A lot of that was businesses, and they seem like they're struggling. We're getting a lot of calls from businesses because they are struggling right now. And I assume the bills be coming off of residentials, and I assume that number is just going to grow. There is, it does end up being a little bit of a cash flow issue because we don't recoup that till later, till tax time. The utilities, especially the water utility, is strong enough to handle that cash flow issue for now. So we are able to handle that internally for that. The other issues that Connie is that Precy talked about is the tax bill issue, as he says that we can pass a resolution say not to include interest and penalties on property taxes that are due. What that ends up doing for us, he mentioned that there is a cash flow issue. This is general fund side. I think, like you mentioned, a lot of smaller communities are going to have to look at that because they don't have the big enough reserves that we would have. It's going to, I looked at it today, I thought it was 2 million, but we get like 3 million is usually our settlement. And when it comes in August, this will be delayed until October. So there's a $3 million gap that we won't, if we do this, that's the difference. Like last year was about $3 million. We do, if they paid right now, we do get paid out in August. So much is collected. Whatever they get collected by August, they will pay us. The thought process is if you change the due date to October 1st, most people are going to wait till October 1st. So, internally there is going to be a little bit of cash flow issues. So there'll be less interest incomes, things like that. But we do have the cash flow to handle in the general fund. we have our reserves and so we were able to handle that if that the council desires with that. I'll have one next meeting. I'll have updates on the current situation for the financials, where we're at and where the projection is at. So I'll have some more updated at the next meeting.
Anyone have any questions for Mark?
Yeah.
Kathy?
So Mark, if we delay the tax collection and we wanted to do a short-term 1 month or 2 month borrowing from a bank, what would our interest rate be?
Right now we're making our interest rate right now, we're receiving about 1.25 is what we're receiving from the banks, 1.5. If you borrow, you're gonna pay a little bit more than that, probably right around 1.5 or something like that. So we have the cash flow to handle it. So, but the interest rates, I don't know if the interest rates of borrow. I mean, the borrowing for a geo note is a different number than short-term borrowing.
So we've got plenty in the bank.
We have enough in the bank that would cover it.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Jake, you want to do your update?
Can I ask a
Yes.
quick question?
Yep.
Sorry. If people are struggling for reasons related to COVID, like unemployment, you talked about businesses, are there alternate sources of relief that they can access to assist with the payments that we know of? Or is there some sort of system in place as a fallback for those individuals?
With the tax payment, are you talking about, or the water payment?
The water payment. I
Uh,
guess either, but specifically the water.
We don't have anything in place other than we're not disconnecting. So I know we've had in the past that when we do disconnect it, they go to local nonprofits, Porch Light and things like that, and they help them with their water bills. So a lot of the nonprofits have, in the past, have stepped up with people. But for currently, I don't know of any programs right now.
Okay, thank you.
Nancy?
So I just want to clarify, since you said most of the calls have been coming from business, the statute in terms of the penalties and everything is the same for business as it is for residential on the water?
Yes, it is. It's
Okay.
It's just, you just did the bulk of business billing. Is that right?
Yeah, we had 3 cycles. We bill each quarter, but there's 3 billing cycles. So we just basically billed the last month was basically all businesses, majority, like 90% of the businesses were billed. So now we're just billed residential, probably 80% is residential. There's a couple, commercials in there. So 2 of the 3 cycles are residential. One of the cycles mainly.
So you're anticipating you're going to be hearing from more residential customers?
Oh yeah, we
Probably.
just sent the bills out last Thursday or Friday. And they already got a couple of calls already. What assistance do you have? What's the policy for
Okay.
payment plans? So we're just starting to get them.
Alder Wood, then Alder Thomas.
So Mark, if we wanted to not disconnect, would the council need to take some action to implement that?
I would prefer if they did.
Sure.
We do have a policy on disconnection. So
We could, point of information, we could add that as an additional resolution for the council to address at the May 18th meeting.
Kathy?
Before I talk, Christy was in the queue someplace.
Chrissy, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. I was wondering if we'll be drafting an alternative or an alternate budget for 2020. I know most cities are projecting a 30 to 45% budget shortfall for this year. Will we be drafting something so we know what we're looking at the end of the year?
Well, for governmental is a little bit different than like a business. We already have pretty much all our money up front because through the property taxes. We will collect and we're made whole by the county. There's just a couple areas of concern that have been their interest income, hotel tax, room tax, court fines, and I can't remember the other one, EMS billing. Those kind of been the 4 major ones. So we're kind of watching that. For now, we're doing okay. We do have a very healthy fund balance we talked about at the last meeting that we can use. We're up to like 30%. So we have been, for this 2020, it's still going to be tight. We're probably going to lose some at the end of the year, but we do have a very healthy fund balance that we talked about last time using.
Well, I know sales tax, what about sales tax? Is that not as much of a concern or?
We don't receive sales tax at all. That'd be affected by the county. The county is affected by sales tax. We do not.
Okay.
Yeah, and part of what we're not sure of either, a lot of, in addition to property tax, we get a lot of fees for different programs and things like that. And we're not sure yet with COVID exactly what that's going to mean. So, but if we don't have fees for if we aren't going to have some programs, then we aren't going to be hiring staff to direct them either. So there's several different angles to consider, but we certainly are keeping a close eye on the.
It's definitely a part because we are savings and expenditures too. So.
Right.
Okay, so my question, Mark, is about the 10% if it goes on the tax bill. I know that there's state statute about that, but I think that it would be really unconscionable to tack on 10% on someone who's already suffering. So I would like us, if we can, to figure out what we have to do to not charge them that 10%.
I will talk to PSC and see what get the feedback from them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only one, but I got to believe my colleagues agree with that approach in general.
I think it's more of a matter of state law would allow us to do that.
Right.
At this point. Alder Moore.
Yeah, I was just going to say that with a new appointment to the PSC, I think that they would be likely to be in favor of waiving that 10% with a new appointment that's been done recently. Because 2 of the 3 PSC members are now our current governor appointments, and the appointment that was just made is very favorable in that regard. And I'd be surprised if they didn't come through.
Yep,
We'll see.
I'll follow up, see if the PSC, and I'm sure they'll have a ruling. Probably a statewide ruling if they do anything.
Right.
Anyone else? Jake, do you want to give us your update?
Sure. Been a long time since I've seen you guys. So we're still alive and kicking in Parks and Rec. We have a department of 7 full-time employees, and 6 of those 7 have been working either remotely or a combination of remotely in the office or out in the field since the stay-at-home order went into effect in March. To that extent, we've transitioned a few of our recreation professionals out into the parks in lieu of bringing on our park seasonals right away. Concurrently, we have started some virtual programming online for our families. So we keep in contact with our current after-school families through a variety of means. Started last night, Monday, Sunday, we had trivia night to the TV show Parks and Recreation, which was a lot of fun. Next Sunday, we have a trivia night for Wisconsin sports. So tune into that if you are a Wisconsin sports aficionado. I know Alder Wood is going to be in on that one. And we're looking at some adult fitness classes as well. So while the staff really wanted to relay their gratitude towards the continually of being paid, whether they're working or not, including our part-time staff, we have had our exercise instructors doing free classes for the community as well. So people can engage in that, and they're very appreciative of that, including the full-time staff and whatever capacity that they can work full-time or not. Challenging times certainly for us and what we do in bringing people together and events and planning. It really is like working with both hands tied behind our backs and not being allowed to do what we do. And a lot of uncertainty still. We are in constant communication as park and recreation communities with Dane County and Dane County Public Health. So the messaging of what's available and what's not has been very consistent across the county, which has been great. This includes the closure of sport courts, tennis courts, basketball, and playgrounds. It also includes the messaging that goes out on social media for social distancing in parks, dog park etiquette, etc. We'll continue to have those conversations with directors from around the county, which has also included the rationale for keeping our restrooms closed during the Safer at Home order. All of us have challenges obtaining proper PPE for staff, as it's all going to healthcare workers, first responders, et cetera. So I think our biggest challenge is trying to get additional guidance from CDC on protocol frequency for sanitization of the bathrooms, and also being able to keep our staff safe. So we will continue to monitor that. This weekend was a pretty good a challenge, I think, to the general public still utilizing parks, even probably not adhering maybe to what we'd like to see as social distancing standards. As the weather warms up, that's certainly going to be another challenge. I envision a slow release of all of our facilities as we do lift out of the Safer at Home order, so you won't see all of our shelter bathrooms open up right away. Events through Park and Rec have all been canceled through the end of the Safer at Home order and have started to creep into June as well. For example, our Mulligans for Monona golf outing, we canceled this year just due to all the situation that's happening in June. 4th of July festival is canceled. We've paused any additional community center or park shelter rentals that haven't already been booked, just due to uncertainty and not wanting to get people's hopes up or have to do refunds, et cetera, and paused recreation registration as well. So the plan is that we will continue to keep our existing summer camp program, registration and plan, and the outdoor pool on for now. I serve as president of the Wisconsin Park and Recreation Association, WPRA. And so on that end, we've had coordination and discussion across the state, and including some lobbying efforts for having some exemptions for the offering of childcare through park and rec agencies, and then the pool. So the main goal, I think, as far as our department, is to the revenue producing portion of our summer day camp program provides basically essential childcare. And that's a big issue for getting people back to work, especially since school's been off for as long as it has been. And some of these restrictions or stay at home, work from home will be lifted. Currently, childcare is pretty tight. It's going to be a challenge to offer it in that format that's currently being regulated by Department of Children and Families. The other thing that we'll talk about briefly tonight is the outdoor pool. No, we don't know if we're going to be able to open or not. So that question we've been getting a lot from everyone and everywhere. Based on a league call with Secretary Palm, it was asked about where pools fit in. At that time, she had indicated that it was phase 3 of the Badger Bounce Back Plan, is where you would be looking at outdoor pools in aquatic centers, which would basically sink us for the year or not allow us to open, based on where we're tracking at this point. I anticipate having a recommendation at the next council meeting on if we have restrictions once this Safer at Home order is lifted, and what those might look like and what that will mean. I can quite efficiently say at this point, we would lose less money not opening the outdoor pool at all. Once we make that decision to open, the current budget is not valid anymore because of potential restrictions that we may have limiting attendance, not having private rentals, et cetera. So I hope a lot of information comes to light over the next couple of weeks, and we can make those decisions collectively before the start. But we have not started that process of filling the pool. Normally we'd be about 2 days away from starting to put water in the pool. We have paused that process. It takes us between 3 and 4 weeks to get completely ready to be open to the public. We can tighten that time frame up from a mechanical end of the water chemistry being right, but until we have further information on what those restrictions might be, I thought it'd be financially prudent to wait on that. So we can effectively say we won't be opening May 30th, pending additional guidance and restrictions from the state. I'll pause there for
Any
questions.
questions for Jake? Molly?
Jake, thanks for everything and just for your flexibility and adaptation during this time, and to your staff, obviously. In your last email that was sort of to the Parks and Rec board and to city staff, you mentioned needing some potential community volunteers to assist in park maintenance. Can you give an update on that? You know, what is sort of the areas of greatest need, or, you know, areas of town that would need the most assistance, just so people have an updated opportunity to lend their time?
Sure. Yeah, if people can practice proper social distancing, we'd love to take volunteers as long as they bring their own gloves and bags and equipment. Raking of leaves around buildings, especially around the tennis court at Ahuska Park, Lattice Park and the boat launch, and the amount of perennial plants that we have. If you're a gardener and can trim off some of the perennial grasses and kind of spring cleanup-ish type of projects. I think trash around the city is okay, pretty good for the most part. Ahuska would probably be the biggest area of need as far as a volunteer effort. So a general trash pickup, leaf raking, picking up big branches in parks, and all of the parks that we have, and just putting them to the side of the road is fine, or the side of the park, we'll get them picked up. We do have some volunteers working on some garlic mustard pulling at Three Meadows Conservancy. And typically we have a group that pulls garlic mustard over at the woods at Frost Woods Park as well.
Anyone else? Nancy?
I just wanted to volunteer when the time is right. I happen to have some white spray paint in my garage, and I'd be happy to go over and spray some 6-foot lines at Schluter for the first beer garden.
Yeah, listen, I said when we come back to have a beer garden, it is going to be the baddest, biggest, best beer garden, you know, on the lake. And we are going to be very, very happy about it.
Yeah.
We actually, you know, so we meet like on Zoom once a week or so with public health, and you know, we're all looking at where's our role in Park and Rec. There's a lot of virtual stuff online, and it's, you know, we all are coming from different walks of life, so to speak. Some of my colleagues across the state that don't have children at home, I can tell they're really amped up and energetic and throwing a bunch of stuff out there. And those of us that are having kids at home are like, you know, what day is it? And how are we managing? And this is insane. And let's just get by today. So virtual programming, we're investigating doing a virtual beer garden with a concert, you know, with some type of music. But I think we're starting off slow to the point of where can we get out into the parks. Certainly I think you probably saw what this weekend looked like at Schluter.
I was going to say it was crazy. Being, you know, for those of you that may not know, the ice cream opened, our ice cream and bait shop opened, and it was crazy busy. Yeah. And
so that's the challenge.
Not 6 foot either. Not a
yeah.
lot.
That's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
As it goes to farmers markets, as it goes to doing what we normally do, is put people in the parks and wanting them to enjoy the parks, but still complying with a safer at home order and supporting, you know, public health is in what we really see ourselves as an agent of public health for health and wellness. But there was people, you know, the community center lot and the Winnecup Dream Park Shelter was packed with people that ran the Lake Monona run on their own. And then, you know, there was people congregating after the race, and it's like, yeah, that's great. You got your exercise, but yet you're still you're bending the, you know, restrictions on household. And I think this was a tough weekend for people because, you know, they want to get out, they want to get fresh air, they want to enjoy it. And we want them to enjoy that too, but we also want to make sure they're complying with the standards. So messaging, it seems like we have signage. Keeping signage in the parks has been tough about whether it's environmental factors or people taking it down. I believe strongly that we have very well educated, well-informed residents in this county that are very aware of what's happening and what they should be doing. It's just whether or not they're choosing to do it is, I believe, the point where we're at now.
Right. Thank you for all you're doing. I was really obviously only teasing, and I thank you for all you're doing.
Any other questions for Jake? No, okay, then Brian, do you want to do your wrap up?
Yeah, so the only thing I've got tonight is again an extension of the staffing plan that we've talked about the last couple of council meetings. This is what I would envision to be the last extension of this plan. Our hope is that by the time we get to June, we'll have a better understanding of whether or not the order has been lifted and a better understanding of whether all staff are back at their normal duty stations or if there is still some combination of staff in facilities and staff working from home. But I believe this would be the last time we'd need to extend this for those who are not able to report to their duty stations. The way that this is written is the same language that was included in our last extension. This just extends it to June 2nd. We can always reevaluate this as we get more information from the state in the coming weeks. But with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have on the plan. And I should say, should have mentioned this at the beginning, the vast majority of our staff are back to work in some capability, whether it's physically in the building or those that have been able to work remotely have been doing so since the beginning of the pandemic. It's a very small portion that don't have the capabilities to work remotely and maybe have some sort of issues with why they can't physically report an immune deficiency or something like that. So the vast majority of staff are kind of back to as normal a schedule as can be.
Any questions, anyone? Okay, well, thank you, Brian. Next item is reports of committees, commissions, etc. I will start with Alder Moore.
I just have a couple of things. One is I want to give a shout out again to the Sustainability Committee for getting through our virtual Earth Week celebrations, and a special thanks to Brad and Alyssa. Alyssa especially was just amazing in order to pull this all off. And we had 5 PSAs that went on WVMO, and big thanks to Will there as well. 1 on energy efficiency, 2 on recycling, and then 1 that the mayor did for us that I wrote on Earth Day and sort of setting up the week and the Earth Day history. And then another one called the Forestry Tree Challenge, our Urban Forestry Tree Challenge. We put together a new flyer that's downloadable off the website on Recycling Right to improve our recycling in the city. Because we've had some issues with that, as you all know, in terms of people putting the wrong things in the recycling. And so we worked on a new flyer there. And the tree challenge is actually going to support our local restaurants as well. And so what we're doing is for any donation of $100 or more to the new Urban Forestry Fund that we created, anything of $100 or more for our fund, or if you plant a tree in your own yard that's a native species, and there's a list of native species trees on the website as well, you get a $25 gift certificate to local restaurant, to one of our restaurants here in town. So the idea is to increase to start the forestry, our urban forestry fund. I know I sent a check-in to myself today, and to also encourage people to plant more trees in their own yards and to increase the overall number of trees by 50. So that we keep pace with the number of trees, as we all know, that are coming down because of ash trees especially. And another thing that we created was for the recycling, was a map of all the places that you can go locally to recycle other household items that do not belong in your bin. And as of today, Brad's a GIS map that Brad did. And as of today, Brad said that it got over 150 hits. And those PSAs will continue to run on VMO. We've taken the Earthlink first line out of it so they can continue to run on Earth on VMO. And we also had other advertising around all of those issues. Also wanted to give a shout out to Sarah Smith, who's a member of the Sustainability Committee and will remain a member of our Sustainability Committee, and her being sworn in as Dane County Supervisor. And I wanted to give a shout out and congratulations to Christy for her new job.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Alder Coor.
Public safety, or not, sorry, not public safety, public works is canceled for Wednesday night. We are deferring our business to June unless something urgent comes up. And I wanted to give great thanks to Monona Fire Department. They had a really busy weekend, including a structure fire yesterday. So grateful for the work that they did to keep us all safe.
Thank you. Alder Groupie.
It's like municipal clerk week across state/nation. So a shout out to Joan and Deputy Clerk Hauser today for all their work, especially in light of, what a tumultuous month April was for everybody. And also just on a personal report, I've read some reports about other cities in the state implementing no mow May, where people are reducing lawn mowing for the month of May to assist our pollinator populations in flourishing. And I know it's too late to do anything official at this point, but just something to chew on and maybe potentially consider in future years. I think that would be a nice addition to a sustainability slash, while we're keeping it green in Monona, to maybe add that to the docket for the future. So.
Just the FYI, Molly, in that regard, I just wrote a PSA today that I'm going to record with Will to encourage people to mow less, not just no mow May, but mow less all summer long, because it's a big fuel issue and it really helps sustainability if we just let the grass grow a little longer.
Yeah.
Okay. Alder Thomas.
No report.
Alder Wood.
The Madison Area Transportation Planning Board will be meeting Wednesday night, and one thing we're going to be looking at approving to add to the transportation program is a new interchange out by Mill Pond Road. The interchange will actually be at County Highway AB. The intersections of Mill Pond Road that goes back to the casino and the AB intersection are two of the most dangerous in Dane County, and in fact, I think even in the state. If that's approved, the construction would be in 2022 and 2023. License review will be meeting next Tuesday. We're actually going to meet in person there at the library media room. Hope we should be able to do it safely. We've only got 5 members on the committee, plus 2 staffers. I think we're only expecting 1 person to appear in person. And then not sure if we're going to have a Parks Board meeting this month or not. I'll be talking to Jake tomorrow about that possibility. That's it.
Alder Schilling.
Yeah, I've yet to meet with Will for the Community Media Committee and get updated on where that committee has left off. Doug and I met this week and for the Landmarks Committee, and we'll continue to review historical properties and find information on those. May is also National History Month, or National Historic Month, I believe it is. And so we're starting to plan a historical walking tour, self-guided, for that committee. We'll be discussing that at our next meeting. Brad Brunn will develop an interactive digital map online, and so people can view our amazing historical homes. And I hope to see some of the Indian mounds on that walking tour as well. And then I've just got two community heroes I really want to acknowledge. The first one serves our elderly population, and he is a Monona Lyft driver. His name is Abdallah Hayawali. A woman named Gail emailed me and singing his praises and wondered if there was any way he could be recognized. She said he is sweet, pleasant, and all the seniors love him. He adores them as well and brings joy to their lives. She's writing to ask if there is a hero award in Monona and if this kind man could be recognized by the city for his years of amazing service. She says, my mother has talked positively about him for over 10 years, and this man is an angel to our senior citizens. His service and this service has been a godsend for my mother, who is now 90, and countless others who depend on taking the bus to get groceries and other items in our area. So I just want to say, Adela, from me and on behalf of the riders of Monona Lift and the city, thank you so much for your wonderful service and the kindness you extend to our community. The second one serves our young residents, and that is Mr. Dean Bowles. Mr. Bowles has left a long legacy of service on the Monona Grove School Board, and he has just finished that service. I've actually never met Mr. Bowles, but I'm well aware of his dedication and the impacts that he's made on our district. I enjoyed reading his life story in the Herald this week, and certainly see that his positive impacts extend far beyond Monona and Cottage Grove. I just want to say thank you for your service, Mr. Bowles, and you will certainly be missed.
And of course, Dean is a former mayor of Monona and alderperson as well.
Yes.
Christy, in terms of that historic walking tour, I think Dean Bowles put together one of those
Oh, fabulous. Maybe
like
based on the book.
years ago.
Fabulous. Oh, cool.
You used to be able to pick it up at City Hall or something. I would look into that because Doug may be able to find that in somewhere in the files or something.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm sure. Jake, did you have any news to add other than?
No, just the historic walking map is available at the Monona Police Department.
Okay.
Pick up that has all it may need some updates to it, but last I know it was still there.
So that's going to be a good starting point for you.
Yeah, we decided Brad wanted to do it interactive so people could use it on their phones, and then he could update.
I'm not sure if he's even aware of the one that there is one already. So interactive would be great though. Joan, did you have anything?
No report, Mayor.
Brian, any more news?
Just one more quick update. So in terms of our Census 2020 self-reporting, we're doing really good in terms of response rate. We're at 72.5%, give or take. That's great. We're comparable with our other adjacent communities, but we really need to make a push to get as close as possible to 100% between now and August 15th, which is the deadline for response. So we'll keep pushing out the message through social media and BMO and other places.
Feel free to remind anyone you know. You can do it online, so it's easy. I don't have anything except that I did sit in on the staff meeting this morning, and Ryan was talking about the library's drive-up pickup service, which has just started, and I think they're just kind of getting all their ducks in a row, but it sounds like things are going pretty well so far. And I think he's hoping that once people get over their initial rush of everything people have been waiting to read, that things will slow down a little bit and it'll all work very smoothly. So other than that, I don't have anything else to report. There are 2 appointments. Is there a motion to approve the appointments?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Appointments are approved. Is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, and there's Doug and his dog. Motion
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you. I'll see you all on the 18th, I imagine via Zoom.